The March of the Automatons. The dolls never stopped smiling. On the outskirts of a forgotten town called Little Hollow, buried beneath layers of moss and silence, stood the remains of a once famous amusement park. Locals spoke of it only in whispers, not out of nostalgia, but out of fear. The park had been abandoned since the summer of 1984, when a mysterious fire consumed the Hall of Automatons. That same night, 20 children vanished without a trace. No bodies, no answers. Just the lingering sound of distant laughter and the metallic scent of rust in the air. For years, it became the stuff of campfire stories, until a bold entertainment company bought the property to reopen it, selling nostalgia as their main attraction. Everything was restored to match the park's original look, including the notorious Automaton Theater, now renamed the Enchanted Stage. Rows of lifelike dolls stood frozen on stage, dressed in vintage costumes, each one with glassy eyes and wide, chipped grins. Opening day came with fanfare. Visitors flooded the park, drawn by curiosity and urban legends. Families laughed nervously as they entered the theater. The lights dimmed. Then something strange happened. The automatons began to move without power. No cords, no visible mechanics, just smooth, fluid movements as if something unseen was guiding them. At first, the crowd applauded, believing it to be a brilliant special effect. But then the lights went out. Complete darkness. 3 minutes passed. When they flickered back on, half the audience was gone. No screams, no struggle, just empty seats and stunned silence. Security footage, later leaked online, showed doll-like figures crawling off the stage, their arms stretched farther than they should have, their heads turned in unnatural angles, and their glassy eyes followed those who tried to escape. They moved like dancers in a twisted ballet, lifting what looked like props until viewers realized they were holding shoes, jackets, and smaller things. The park was evacuated within the hour. Authorities arrived, but the theater was sealed shut. Inside, the dolls stood motionless again, in perfect formation, as if nothing had ever happened. Yet people claimed that if you pressed your ear to the walls at night, you could still hear clapping, slow, synchronized clapping. Eventually, the company shuttered the park permanently. Steel doors were bolted, warnings were posted, but the smiling faces of the automatons remained, visible through cracks in the wood, always staring, always ready. Years later, a young girl named Clara explored her grandmother's attic. There, hidden beneath an old trunk, was a dusty music box carved with the park's logo. Curious, she wound it. A familiar tune played, one heard in the Enchanted Stage decades ago. Then, in the corner of the attic, something moved. The dolls had waited long enough. The ticket with no return. Entry guaranteed. Exit, not always. It began without warning. A strange amusement park appeared overnight on the outskirts of a forgotten city, a neighborhood where fog settled like a curse and the streetlights flickered without wind. No construction, no announcements. One day it wasn't there, and the next it stood tall with rusted rides, faded banners, and a glowing sign that read simply, "Welcome." There were no staff walking around, no sounds of engines or laughter, just a single ticket booth. And inside it, a figure, perfectly still. A man with lifeless eyes, like marbles left out in the rain. He didn't speak. He only handed out tickets to anyone who stared at him long enough. 10 seconds. That's all it took. People said the moment your gaze locked with his, it was already too late. You'd feel compelled to accept the ticket. Some said they went just for fun. Others never came back. Eliza was curious. She had heard the stories, but like most thrill seekers, she didn't believe them. One night, with 2 close friends, she approached the booth. The man didn't blink. He simply extended 3 tickets. They took them. As they crossed the gates, a strange chill crawled up Eliza's spine. Inside, the park looked ordinary, but nothing felt right. The lights were too dim, the shadows too thick. The candy stalls sold treats with colors that didn't exist on any spectrum. The cotton candy? It tasted wrong, like something that had been alive too long. The roller coasters twisted endlessly, diving into tunnels where time seemed to stop. When they emerged, the watches on their wrists were gone. And the people? They didn't move like normal guests. They stood still, watched, their mouths slightly open, eyes wide and dry, as if they hadn't blinked in hours. When Eliza decided to leave, she realized the entrance had vanished. In its place stood a tall wall of mirrors. But these weren't ordinary reflections. The mirrors showed versions of her, distorted, aged, panicked. They reached out, screamed silently, beat against the glass. Her friends started vanishing one by one. First into a carousel, where the horses twisted their heads and clamped down. Then into a haunted house, where they saw their own funerals projected on the walls. Every attraction was alive, hungry, waiting. Eliza ran, heart pounding, back to the booth. The man was still there, still silent, still staring. But as she looked closer, it wasn't a man anymore. It was her. Her own face, pale and hollow, eyes glazed over, arm extended, offering a ticket to the next person who'd stare too long. That was the rule. One can only leave if another takes their place. And now, Eliza stands there day and night, unable to blink, unable to cry. Her smile is soft wax, her voice long gone, yet she waits, patiently. The ticket in her hand still warm, and if you ever wander too close, if you stare for just a few seconds too long, she'll hand it to you. The park always needs someone new. The Ferris wheel's final turn. Step up, see the city, vanish. In the decaying heart of an abandoned amusement park, hidden behind rusted gates and wild overgrowth, there stands a massive Ferris wheel, silent, towering, and far too intact for something left to rot. Locals call it the last view, a ride said to offer the best view at the end of your life. Most thought it was just a myth, the kind whispered between bored teenagers at sleepovers. But the myth had rules. 1. Never ride it alone. 2. Never board after midnight. 3. Never, under any circumstance, enter cabin number 13. One moonless night, a group of 5 friends decided to test it. They laughed off the warnings, set up camp beside the dead carnival games, and dared each other to climb aboard when the hour struck 12. And when it did, the Ferris wheel groaned. Its lights blinked on, glowing an unnatural red. Not festive, but feverish, like veins pulsing under bruised skin. Drawn to it like moths, the group approached. The wheel turned slowly, silently, with no power source. Cabin number 13 stopped right in front of them, the door swinging open on its own. They climbed in, joking, unaware of the trap they had just stepped into. As the ride began, the air grew heavy. The ground below vanished into fog. Each revolution pulled them deeper into something else. Through the scratched windows, they saw moments that didn't belong to them. Funerals they never attended, places they'd never visited, people they never knew, crying their names. Then came the visions of themselves, not as they were, but as they might be, falling, burning, gasping for breath. The voices whispered dates, some matched birthdays, others matched the days they'd die. The laughter was gone now. Only silence remained inside the cabin, each friend gripping the seat, too terrified to speak. At the top, the Ferris wheel paused. The city stretched out below, but it wasn't their city. It was a version twisted by time, burning at the edges. Buildings collapsed, smoke rising like fingers. It felt real, too real. They watched as shadows moved in the streets below, familiar silhouettes running, screaming. And then the wheel turned again, pulling them down. But when it stopped, only one figure stepped out of cabin 13. His face was familiar, but his eyes were hollow, too wide, too still. His friends called his name, but he just smiled and repeated strange phrases in a flat tone. Words none of them had spoken. Phrases that didn't match the moment. The kind of echo you'd expect from an empty hallway, not a human. The park was chained shut the following day. Authorities said it was trespassing, that the others had run off, but no bodies were ever found. And in every photograph taken at the park afterward, old photos that had never shown anything before, you could now see 5 pale faces inside cabin 13, watching, waiting, eyes blank as porcelain. People say if you pass by the old Ferris wheel just before dawn, you might catch it turning once, slowly, with only one cabin stopping, empty and open, waiting for its next guest. And if you board it, you'll see the city, not as it is, but as it ends. And then, you'll never come back down the same.